Zombies Day 0. Tokyo, Japan, young Aiko took refuge in the Akihabara district, where technology and pop culture merged. With his cunning and computer skills, he tried to decipher the cryptic messages that appeared on the screens of all electronic devices. In the heart of Akihabara, neons blinking and nauticus mixing with tourists, Aiko struggled to decipher the electronic puzzles that flooded the city. Her fingers danced on the keyboard, unleashing codes and patterns hidden on the screens. Cryptic messages appeared everywhere. On the trains, what is real? What is illusion? In maid cafe ads, the answer is in the binary code. On the monitors of the Mango stores, the virus is not just biological. Aiko knew technology was his ally. Zombies were not only creatures of flesh and bone, they also hid in bits and bytes. What connection was there between the messages and the plague that devastated Tokyo? His computer skills were his only hope. Aiko plunged into the dark web, following digital threads that led her to encrypted files and dark servers. What was the origin of the virus? Why? And how to stop it? In his small apartment, surrounded by cables and flashing screens, Aiko became the last line of defense. Pop culture and technology intertwined in his mind as he struggled to decipher the codes. Aiko not only faced the zombies in the streets, but also an invisible enemy that threatened to sink everything into darkness. His intelligence, cunning, and determination were his best weapon, all his intellectual resources. And while neons were still blinking on Akihabara, Aiko was holding on to the hope of finding answers before it was too late. Aiko is not. She was alone. The samurai Kazuki wandered through the streets of Asakusa, his disoriented katana and his determined gaze. He had lost his family in the zombie outbreak and now he was seeking revenge. Although his methods were traditional, his heart burned with the same determination as Aiko's. Hiroshi, the crazy engineer, lived in an underground laboratory in Shinjuku. His experiments with technology and biology had led him to create strange hybrids alimenticios. Aiko was suspicious of him, but knew that his knowledge could be crucial to stopping the plague. Yumi, the fallen idol, had been a famous idol before the zombie outbreak. Now, her face was dull, but her voice was still beautiful. Can't have inspired the survivors to move forward. Aiko admired his courage and his ability to find beauty, even in tragedy. Kendo teacher Sensei Takashi taught kendo in a dojo in Shibuya. His sword was his extension, and his discipline kept him focused. When the zombies attacked, Takashi turned into a steel whirlwind. Aiko learned some techniques from him, and together they defended in Senso-ji. Cairo, Egypt 0 day. In the shadows of ancient pyramids and temples, archaeologist Dr. Feynman immersed himself in reading ancient hieroglyphs. His lantern lit up the inscriptions on the walls, revealing secrets that had remained hidden for millennia. Dr. Feynman wasn't alone in his search for answers in the catacombs. Next to him was a small team of collaborators. Nadia was an expert on the history and culture of ancient Egypt. His knowledge of funeral rituals and hieroglyphic inscriptions supplemented Dr. Feynman's findings. Ahmed, the drone engineer, had adapted drones to explore inaccessible areas of the catacombs. Their flying devices captured images and videos that helped the team map the underground maze. Layla, the cryptographer, had a sharp mind for codes and ancient languages. Decrypting the puzzles of the INSCRIPT was his specialty. He worked with Dr. Feynman on the interpretation of the inscriptions. Rashid, the guardian of the traditions, was the elderly caretaker of the catacombs. He had inherited ancestral knowledge from his family and knew the secrets hidden in the alleys. Although he did not speak much, his presence was reassuring to the team. This group plunged into the unknown, facing dangers and unraveling mysteries that could save humanity. The UNSCRIPTINTHEVOOKOFTHEDEAD were a riddle. Who were they? Why weren't their names on the funeral records? Dr. Feynman knew that these clues could be crucial to stopping the plague spreading throughout Egypt. Dr. Feynman found ancient crocodile leather rolls containing lists of names, carefully stained with red ink. The NOTINSCRIPT were there, their identities deliberately erased. The hieroglyphs spoke of an ancient ritual. The UNINSCRIPT were those whose names had been erased from THEVOOKSOFLIFEANDDEATH. They deciphered the inscriptions with trembling hands. The NOTINSCRIPT should NOT be released. But how? The staff and the archaeologist entered the catacombs, following the clues to a secret chamber. There, in the penumbra, they found a sealed sarcophagus. The inscriptions on its cover spoke of a covenant with the gods. Dr. Feynman knew he had to open it. STOPTHERELEASEOFTHEUNSCRIPTED and uncover the truth behind the outbreak. With a last breath of courage, the archaeologist lifted the lid. On Zero Day, Dr. Feynman became the guardian of an ancestral secret. The plague threatened humanity, but he held the key to salvation. But there the zombies came. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Day Zero. In the iconic American Stadium, where once the songs of passionate football fans resonated, now a sinister silence reigned. The stairs were deserted, and the grass was stained with blood and ashes. Former footballer Vidinho, whose days of glory on the pitch had been left behind, had become an improvised warrior. The passion for football had been replaced by the urgency of survival. Vidinho led a heterogeneous group of survivors who had found refuge in the stadium. Among them was Rosa, the brave nurse. Rosa had worked at the nearby hospital before the zombie outbreak. Now, his medical knowledge was vital to treating the wounds and diseases of the survivors. His white uniform was stained, but his will remained intact. Peter had been a miracle in his childhood. Now, his multiple skills were crucial to winning communications. Isabella was carrying her baby in her arms while fighting the undead. Motherhood had not weakened her, on the contrary, it had given her an even stronger reason for survival. His determination and unbreakable love were a beacon of hope for all. Charles, the retired, had served in ELVOPE and knew the tactics of combat. Their experience became invaluable as they confronted hordes of zombies. Sometimes, I looked at the playground and remembered the football matches that used to take place there. Vidinho led this diverse group, with a mixture of nostalgia and determination. The roar of the crowd had been replaced by the shouts of battle and the noise of the guns. On Day Zero, the American Stadium was not just a place of memories, it was the last bastion in a besieged city, New York. USA, Day Zero. The city that never sleeps collapsed in chaos at the same time as the emergency signal burst from all devices. The skyscrapers that once shone with neon lights were now wrapped in shadows. The fearless journalist Sarah Lou Pennington found herself trapped in the middle of the zombie apocalypse as the infected crowded over the traffic bottles in the rush hour. The lights and the screams were mixed with the noises of the non-dead. Sarah, with her camera in her hand, documented the tragedy that was unfolding before her eyes. The streets were filled with twisted bodies and abandoned vehicles. The lightning flashed red as if the city itself was bleeding. Frank, in his blood-spotted driver's uniform, was clinging to the wheel of a bus that was already badly hit. The windows were broken by the clutches of the non-dead. The smell of forced drive and despair filled the air as he maneuvered through the streets full of zombies. The bus had become his mobile refuge. The passengers were no longer tourists or workers, they were now survivors. Frank had left behind his usual route and had become a survival driver. Every stop was an opportunity to save more people, to take them to a safe place. The electronic ads inside the bus were still flashing, but now they showed emergency messages. SECUREZONE, Madison Square Garden. DISTONIVLESUPPLIES, at the Museum of Modern Art EVITEHECENTER, or at Times Square. Frank didn't know if they'd arrive on time. Traffic was chaotic, and the non-dead gathered at the intersections. But he was still driving, his gaze fixed on the road, his heart beating at the pace of the bus engine. Frank wasn't just a driver, he was a hero. His blood-spotted uniform was his coat. Through the broken windows, he saw the city that aired his home, now transformed into a battlefield. And as the engine roared, Frank kept moving forward, carrying hope on his uncertain route. The journalist knew she had to find answers. How had it all started? Her notes and videos were her only weapon against the darkness. He entered the subway stations, where the tunnels resonated with the yelling of the non-living. When a fuel truck exploded far away, Sarah ran to the nearest door, and there she found other survivors. Frank, the bus driver, still wearing his blood-spotted uniform, Lena, of emergencies, improvising bandages with what she had at hand. Amid the chaos and despair, Lena, the emergency nurse, moved with determination. Her skillful hands cared for the wounded who arrived in avalanche. The emergency rooms were crowded. Doctors and nurses fought against time to save lives. Lena had seen everything: bites, fractures, burns. But now, the non-dead also filled the corridors. Patients became threats, and the line between victim and aggressor was blurred. Lena was not just a nurse, she was hope. His voice calmed the wounded, his bandages stopped the bleeding, and his gaze conveyed the promise that they were not alone. Sometimes, a moment of weakness was allowed in the rest room, where tears were mixed with cold coffee. Lena not only fought the plague, she also fought her own exhaustion and fear. But her oath as a nurse remained intact, to save lives, even when the world was collapsing. Jackson, the pizza dealer, whose bike now served as the only escape. A pizza dealer, he found an unexpected connection between his old job and the struggle for survival on Zero Day. Although he no longer delivered pizzas, it had become his only escape. The twists and zigzags he used to do to deliver orders now allowed him to evade the zombies on the streets of New York. The speed and agility he had perfected while avoiding traffic were now his best allies against the undead. In his mind, every pizza delivery had turned into a race for life. Sarah knew the city was on the brink of the abyss. But he also knew that the truth was out there as he fought for his own survival. Seoul, South Korea, John, a lonely survivor, clung to Korean routine and precision. His group included Yoon-jae, Min-ho, and Hae-won. Although he noticed the growing closeness between Yoon-jae and Min-ho, both of them continued to behave coldly toward him and Hae-won.